Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. The videos will be thin on the ground this week due to other commitments, but today I've got a little bit of spare time, so I thought I'd have with conversations with other people, this has just come up and I thought it would be worth having a chat about. The misaligned Phalaenopsis, found in more homes than probably any other houseplant in many parts of the world. So it's obviously not a very good orchid, is it? Well, actually, yes, it flipping well is. They're smashing, but it's misaligned. The Phalaenopsis orchid, the moth orchid, the peasant orchid, the orchid weed, I have heard them called many things. At the end of the day, the common word in all of those statements is mainly orchid. Still an orchid. Now, okay, nowadays these are mass produced by vast hybridizers and growers and sold to the open market, that in business terms is a throwaway commodity. That's how they are marketed. They're like a bunch of roses. You buy them, you take them home, you put them in water, and sometime later, and with the case of the roses, not too long later, they die. You throw them away, and if you want some more, you go and get another one. And that's a little bit how these have sort of come to pass, shall we say. You know, they are mass produced, they are put out at very low prices. This particular one here, this is a mini Phalaenopsis. This plant will not grow large. It will grow more leaves and it will grow more roots, and some old roots will die off. That's Phalaenopsis for you, but it's not really going to get much bigger in width terms than that. That's not a big orchid. That can be accommodated in so many places at a size like that. Some of them are huge and some of them are medium and some of them are little. That's the plant. And they've even got different shapes and different coloured leaves. Some of them have got mottled leaves. They're very pretty as a plant in their own right. Anyway, this is a 4-spike Phalaenopsis. It's behaving weirdly because its flower spike comes right out of the growing tip. And personally, I've never seen that before. It's still a Phalaenopsis, and basically we've bought these wholesale trade to sell at the New Forest show, which is where I'll be most of the week, and we got these for £5. We're selling them at 10. In the business world, that's not a bad profit margin, is it? Because we're going to be there anyway and people will walk up to us. We haven't even got to market the blinking things. All we've got to do is stand next to them and take the money. So, yeah, that's a 10 quid plant. It's got 4 flower spikes on it. I doubt if I will ever achieve that again. My growing conditions are not perfect for Phalaenopsis. They're not far off because these are very tolerant. Anyway, that's that. That's a mini Phal. It's one of my favourite colours. I do like the yellows, oranges and reds. But how can you say that's not a nice bloom? It's gorgeous and it's scented. Yeah? It's got a posh label because it's already been to a show. And look at the size of these leaves. Yeah? They're pretty big. Yeah? I mean, that's actually a cross. It's a named cross, and it's a species crossed with a primary cross. Yeah? I'm not going into the names, it's not worth it. You can always look them up. You've only got to Google Phalaenopsis sweet memory and you will get a wealth of information about that one type of orchid. Google's a marvellous thing. But don't believe everything you see on it, because it might not be true. Who puts the stuff up on Google? You know, so don't take it as gospel. But if lots of things say the same thing, you're probably on the right track. So Phalaenopsis, big ones, small ones, medium ones. There's another little one. No flowers on it, yeah, but there will be. It's got some nice root tips. This is a medium-sized one, and this is my only species. This is Sideria japonica, or Phalaenopsis japonica. And the japonica bit is quite important because the first 5 letters of that actually tell you where it comes from. It's also known as the Japan Phalaenopsis. It comes from Japan. And that was in an unboxing video. Actually had blooms on at the time. They didn't last long, they were on their way out, but the guy left them on for me. So that's my only species at the moment. Things change. And then we've got some of the bigger flipping things, yeah? Yeah, we're getting up to the bigger sizes here. And in the world of Phalaenopsis, that's not even the biggest. Some of them grow a lot bigger than that. But Phalaenopsis, like all orchids, have their problems. The culture problems that you get with Phalaenopsis are basically not that great. You know, these are so tolerant little babies. They'll grow almost anywhere. They grow on your dining room table. They grow on your bathroom windowsill. I wouldn't put them out in the sunshine, but you know what I mean. As orchids go, they're pretty tolerant. You can even mount them. There's a mounted one. It grows out sideways, not bolt upright like that. Yeah? And that's how they would grow naturally in the wild. They would hang off the sides of branches and trees. And there's a good reason for that. These things have a crown. They have a well, like a vase or vase, however you say it. And it's capable of holding water when they are upright like that. And that's one of the main causes of problems with Phalaenopsis, is getting water in there. This is not on the list of good ideas. You will cause crown rot. Not always, but in some circumstances you can cause crown rot. However, if the plant's on its side like that, where's the water going to go? In the monsoon rains, where's the water going to go? It's just going to run straight off. And if a tiny little bit collects in there, out in the wild where it grows, the air movement and temperature would evaporate that water so fast it would not do any harm. If wild Phalaenopsis got crown rot, they'd have died out by now, so obviously they don't. Anyway, that's a mounted one. Good little set of roots. There's some older roots, some dying off. Those were the ones that were on it when I got it. And then there are the new ones. And in the main, those are pretty good roots. It's coming on nicely. Looking forward to the blooms on that one. Right, the range of elements that you need to take on board for growing Phalaenopsis. They're not great, and as I've said, they are very, very tolerant orchids. So they have a wide range of growing conditions. They could go in a category of not that fussed, like me sometimes. Not that fussed. Okay, but first of all we'll go to watering. Now with Phalaenopsis, that's one of the main reasons for killing them, is the dribble of water a day. Now this one's recently been watered. It's very wet. How can I tell it's wet? Well, I know the colour of my bark and what it looks like when it's wet, plus the fact it was me that chucked the water in there, so I do know. Look at the colour of the roots. They're a deep green. The water was absorbed by the velamen and changed colour. So when Phalaenopsis orchid roots are wet, they go green. If they're old or dying roots, that may not be strictly true. But in the main, a good healthy root that gets wet will take in that water. The velamen will soak it in like a sponge. That's its job. That's what it does. However, this one's dry. It's not crying out, water me now. You see there's still a bit of condensation in the pot. In my environment, that means something to me. It means it's not totally dry yet. These don't need to get totally dry, but it's not a bad idea because they will stand a little bit of dryness for a while. If I leave that pot like that for a week in these temperatures, these leaves will wilt. And normally that's the first sign of a plant crying out for water. Unfortunately, leaves can wilt due to overwatering. And what that normally means is it's sort of like a circle. You overwater a plant, the roots get soggy, and they start to rot. So they're not doing their job properly. And the leaves start to wilt because they're not getting the hydration through those roots, despite the fact they're soaking wet. So you see some wilted leaves and you give it even more water. RIP coming soon. Yeah, so these plants are great. If you've got them in a clear pot, they will tell you when they need water. When the roots go a nice silvery colour like that, a sort of greyish silvery tinge to them, they're dry and they might need some water soon. Yeah? When they're dark green like that, they're soaking wet. They do not need any more water, trust me. You keep watering that plant for any length of time and keeping it like that, those roots will die. Then this bit will die. Yeah? So, watering. When the plant needs it. Loads of questions come up all over, but how often should I water my plant? That's the wrong question. The right question is how... it's difficult to even put it as a question. And the question should really be, when should I water my orchid, not how often. Everybody's environment's different. You know, one house is different to another, one bathroom's different to another, one grow room is different to another, one greenhouse is different to another. So the plant tells you. And the question should be, when should I water my orchid? And the answer to that is when it needs watering. Now, in some cases, in some of my orchids at this time of year, that is every day, please, or I'm going to shrivel. Yeah? Well, I've never had that with any of my mounts. Nobody's ever shriveled yet. And boy, have we just had a heat wave. Everybody survived. They've taken a deep breath and gone, thank God we're back to normal temperatures. But the temperatures were a bit extreme for a period of 4 or 5 days recently. So any other problems I've had recently, those temperatures were not a factor. The problems occurred way before the heat wave, under normal conditions. So, by the way, I'm not getting sidetracked, I promise. Anyway, so your orchid will tell you when it needs water. So that's the watering done, quite honestly. Don't use freezing cold water. Don't put ice cubes on your orchid. They're a tropical plant. That really does come in a category of dumbass idea. Excuse my French. But anyway, they say use tepid water. Yeah, okay, so not warm, not the sort of thing you'd get in to have a bath or a shower, tepid. So not necessarily straight out of the cold tap, but tepid. That'll work well. And on the subject of water, these are classed as high feeders. So if you want to, you can use whatever fertilizer you use at its recommended dosage. If you go over that dosage, that's your risk. Manufacturers have said this is the recommended dosage. Most of them will not say do not exceed this dose, but some will. And be it on your head. I know that these will take a bit more than a recommended dose depending on the type of fertilizer, but you do that at your risk. And do not say that I told you to do it, because I didn't. Use the recommended dosage. And if you have any doubts at all, then don't use the recommended dosage, use less. Cut your risk element. You know, I used to grow these. I've had these around since I was at college when they were flipping expensive plants and rare. You couldn't get hold of the blinking things, but I still had one. I've had Phalaenopsis around all my life. And until recent years, they lived on tap water. Nobody died. Everybody flowered. They were fine. So they can live off tap water. Under normal circumstances, tap water's got some things in it that plants can live off of. Otherwise your garden would die, wouldn't you, this time of year when you're watering it with a hose all the time? Yeah, so there is some good stuff. There's some unknown stuff, but there's some stuff in tap water that can keep these plants alive. Some tap water is incredibly hard. You know, on a TDS meter it could come out well up in the, you know, up around the 5 or even 600 mark. That's pretty strong tap water. That might not be ideal. Rainwater's good. You know, if you can get hold of it, rainwater mixed with some tap water might be good. Lots of choices. And feed levels at recommended doses. But with these, if they're healthy plants with good root systems, they will take that recommended dose. Okay? That's water and feeding. Light levels. Quite honestly, apart from putting them in a dark cupboard, these things really don't mind that much. They will grow on your dining room table. Now, if you take a camera with a light meter from my grow room to where my dining room table is, I will have moved about 2 meters, say 7 feet. And the light reading on that meter would have plummeted, and the poor old lens would have opened as wide as it could to get as much light in as possible. But a Phalaenopsis will grow on my dining room table. It will grow on my bathroom windowsill. A place where it will not be happy is in full midday sun. I don't care whether you're indoors or outdoors, they're not geared up to that sort of light level. I would suggest, a lot of books will say, part shade, shady. What the hell does that mean? Such a generalised term. You could get a foot candle's reading, but then how the hell are you going to check? But basically they will go from quite low light levels to quite high light levels, providing the direct sun doesn't get on the leaves. Now, if you've got them on an east or west facing window that gets a bit of morning sun or a bit of evening sun, they'll probably be okay. I'm not saying they will be, I'm saying they probably will be, because they are classed as a shade-loving type plant, but they will take much higher light levels. Very tolerant plants, so that's the light done. Heat, these are warm-loving babies. The easiest way to say is that if you're sitting around in your shirt and your shorts, or your shirt and your jeans, or your shirt and your skirt, and you're comfortable, then so are your Phalaenopsis, but they are tolerant. What they are not tolerant of is cold. They do not like to get chilled. They are classed as warm growers. Not really intermediate, actual warm. Intermediate's allowed to go down to, depending on which book you read or which internet site you go on, sort of the 13, 14, 15 mark. I don't go down below 15 in the winter, although some of my dendrobiums are going to get a bit of a chill this year for reasons already specified. But Phalaenopsis don't like to get cold. In the home, they are highly unlikely to get cold because we the people live there, and we the people don't like getting cold, some more so than others. So temperature range, vast. Don't let them get cold, and if you let them get very hot, they could start to deplete the moisture within the plant because it'll transpire faster than the roots can take it up, especially if the air is dry. So hot, arid, dry conditions, not so good. They're not a cactus, yeah? They're an orchid. Okay, that's the temperature range. We've done the light range. Humidity, quite honestly, apart from not being a cactus, these things don't really give a monkeys. Humidity levels can drop quite low with these, and they don't mind. And it can get quite high and they don't mind. If it gets high enough that condensation starts to form, especially if the temperature is low, then you could start getting condensation, trickle, 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 down into here. We do not want water in there. And if it's in there with low temperatures, you're probably creating your first problem. That's if you haven't drowned it in the first place. Okay, an incredibly tolerant and an infinitely variety of blooms. The species have got some spectacular blooms and fragrances. Some hybrids have got fragrance, not all. Most of the time the hybrids have had that fragrance bred out of them. They're going for bloom size, bloom shape, bloom colour and speed. If you're going to mass produce something and it's going to take in perfect conditions, say 5 years to get to blooming size, you've got your work cut out to make a profit. All the people looking after them have got to be paid, or the automated systems looked after, etc, etc. However, you can get these babies from the little tiny plug plants, you know, just about acclimatized out of a flask, up to blooming size in much, much less time. Out on the sales table, get your money back in. That's good business in my book, and these really lend themselves to good business. So if you haven't got any Phalaenopsis, why not? They're not bad. Variety of colours, infinite. From pure whites right up through the pale yellows on into the greens, and then through into the oranges and onto the reds and into deep reds, up through the delicate pinks, deep purples, spots, blotches, stripes, combinations. What the hell more could you ask for something that's cheap and cheerful? You can buy it in the garage when you get your fuel, you can get it while you're doing your food shopping, you can get it while you're buying your screws and your hammers up the DIY store. What more could you ask for? If you haven't given them a chance, give them a chance. They're wonderful, aren't they? Okay. So a chat on the most tolerant orchid you could possibly ever grow. You can abuse these little babies and they will reward you with wonderful blooms. I don't recommend abusing them, and in some cases I don't recommend slapping them around and calling them peasant orchids, but for the sake of amusement, bring it on, Astrid. That's one of the best videos I've ever seen in the orchid world. I still giggle every time I think about it. Anyway, so a quick look at the peasant orchid, the moth orchid, the Phalaenopsis orchid, right from the rare species, right through the more readily available species, right up through the range of hybrids, big, small, multicoloured. The only one I would say has no place in an orchid collection is the blue one. You know the one I mean. It's horrible. You may love it, but I don't. Okay, quick chat about Phalaenopsis. I doubt if this has helped anyone because it's such a generalisation. Some of my other orchids I could do a spotlight on. I can't justify a spotlight on an orchid that can tolerate so many different environments and still be well and still bloom well. Okay? So, hope you like Phalaenopsis, a few S's there. I'll be a bit missing this week because I've got this show to deal with. Somebody volunteered or got volunteered to be there, given that it's nearly an hour away, at 7 in the morning tomorrow, because I've got to turn the lights on our display and get the sign lit up prior to judging, which starts at 7:30, and nobody else could get there in time, so I lost the toss. So I'm going to be up pretty damn early tomorrow because I've still got to do a bit of watering before I go, and I've got an hour's drive and I have to be there at 7 o'clock to get those little chores done, and then I'm going to get kicked out until 10:15 when the judging finishes. Cheers for that. That's going to cost you a good bit of cake and coffee. Have a good day, enjoy your growing, have happy times with your orchids. Yeah, they're fun. Don't get bogged down. And if you really want easygoing fun, you can't go far wrong with Phalaenopsis. Thanks for dropping by.